tonight and saying it's good, but it's not good enough, and we have work to do. And without, because I think both he and I feel like we just don't have enough data to be able to make some kind of, conclusion. I don't think I have any, I don't have any early understanding of Ohio yet, because the early vote just started there. But I think in Virginia, the polling's been good. The early vote is fine. And, but if we want to win in the way we want to win, we got to keep our pedal to the metal and keep working hard, I think is what I think we both agree on that. Tom, do you want to jump in on that at all?
Yeah, thanks. I'll just say a couple quick things on that, because like you say, we're still waiting to have the target early site launching. Our team is working tirelessly on that, and though that's because that's a public facing thing, it's not something that's direct work for campaigns and candidates. Sometimes it isn't the top priority to get it out there. They're actually working on another very cool thing that I can't talk about yet, but that potentially will have an even bigger impact for the benefit of Democrats and progressives. So very excited about that. We'll have more about that. But yeah, so in Virginia, like you say, we don't have that historical context yet. I feel the same way you do. I look at it and I say, well, look, it's not bad. There are some things to feel good about. But one thing that I saw in looking at it, which I'll share it with y'all first, haven't shared this elsewhere, but looking at turnout among African-American voters, strong right now. They're about 14% of the early vote. And it's one area where we do have context. When you look at the early vote just in last year's election, the vote before election day, African-American vote was about 1.5 points lower than that. So that's a positive sign. But it's not all, as positive. It's close. The early vote is a little bit older than I think we'd like it to be at this point. We need to see younger voter mobilization out there. We do know that younger voters, even with the early vote, tend to come out a little bit later. So that's why I'm going to be interested to look at the comparisons to the same point in time, see what we see with younger voters. But that's a key element as well. In terms of women, they're about a little over 54% of the votes cast so far. For context, the final early vote, when you look at the past few election cycles in Virginia, women have tended to be somewhere between 55 and 56% of the votes cast before election day. So again, that's one number that I would look at and say, well, it's good. It needs to be better, to your point. And then the other potential curveball in this analysis that we're paying attention to is at some point, Republicans are going to wake up to the notion that avoiding early vote, just from a strategic perspective, is a huge blunder. And we saw this after the election last year, where Republicans admitted that it likely cost them some very key elections and that they needed to be better about it. We've seen some sign that they're pushing this in Virginia and elsewhere. It's a question of to what extent are they able to break through that sort of party orthodoxy that mail voting is fraud because Leader Trump told them it was. So we'll see. But that's something else that we're going to have to look at in the analysis, is to what extent are we seeing Republicans rebounding slightly there?
Yeah, I mean, the VPAP data, which a lot of people are using, is a very crude data set, because it all it tells you is the turnout in a district. It doesn't tell you the breakdown, Democrats and Republicans in the way that we would all, I think that we would want, with a level of certainty that we would want to really know what's happening there. And so I think we talked about this beforehand, and I think we both felt that things are good, but, they're not good enough. And the polling has also been good. One of the things that I think is going to be really interesting, we discussed this a little bit before we got on, is that, it's been my view that we've been in sort of one single election since May or June of last year, and that hasn't really changed very much. And that happens in politics, right? But the most important thing is that one of the reasons polling can't predict anything, in part because everything changes in politics. What's been interesting is that we've had a very consistent environment, I think, since the spring of last year. But at some point, that environment is going to start giving away to a new environment, just in the way that, we had from the fall of 2021 really until spring of 2022. the environment was Afghanistan, high inflation, and it was a bad environment for us. I mean, this is part of the reason why people believed the red wave was going to come, because Biden's numbers went way down. We were struggling as a party during that period, but then things changed. And you have to, and one of the things that I often say is that, no election is like any other election. Every election is sui generis. You need to look at the data of this election. Anytime you hear a commentator talk about how this election is like that election, you should almost immediately dismiss the analysis, because it's just lazy. And no election is like any other election. Every election is unique, and it's why you have to pay attention to the data that's in front of you, not pay attention to sort of notions in your head about what's going on. And to me, I think one of the most interesting things that we're about to see is that I think what happened over the last few weeks, and particularly with what happened in Israel over the weekend, it's going to change the election. I think we're going to, within a few weeks, and I don't know yet how. I mean, will it help us? Will it make people more security minded? What is that going to do in Virginia, right? I think there's the national overlay, which has been really about Biden being a good president and, Democrats doing a good job and the Republicans being too crazy, which has sort of been the basic structure. Could yield to something different. I will say that Biden's performance publicly over the last couple of days has been exemplary, and he's really kicked ass. And I think that, right now, to me, it's very possible that what's happening, as horrible as it is in Israel, and, our hearts go out to the people of Israel in every conceivable way, that, Biden's strong, forceful presidential set of actions that he's taken could actually really start, benefiting us in a way, and sort of helping him on what we call in our business the strong leader, weak leader dimension, which is, part of what happens with his age is the way it manifests in polling is that his age becomes a sign of weak leadership, right? This is what the Republicans are constantly trying to do. And so if he acted forcefully and with strength and decisiveness and and effectively, I think it could have a significant impact, on the understanding of where we are. And so I think this, my just lay it out there, is that I think this election environment that we've been in is going to change now. We're actually going to be in this sort of next phase, within, I don't know when, right? Within 6 weeks, within a month. But what are your thoughts about that, Tom? I mean, just help people understand the way we think about this, particularly those of us who've been doing this a long time, right? Where you see these ebbs and flows in elections. I mean, for example, in the 2018 midterm, when I was